The greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And those words from Confucius encapsulate one of life's most empowering truths. We are imperfect beings, flawed, fallible, and destined to stumble from time to time. But our missteps, our moments of failure and adversity can either break us or make us stronger. The choice is ours. Will we stay stuck in the mire of defeat and self-pity? Or will we find the inner fortitude to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep chasing our dreams with every fiber of our being? I stand before you today as a man intimately acquainted with failure. Over the decades of striving towards my loftiest ambitions, I have fallen more times than I can count. Crushing setbacks, humiliating losses, soul-shaking crises that brought me to the brink of utter ruin. There were moments when the pain felt so immense, so overwhelming, that little voice of doubt whispered, "This is too hard. Give up. You'll never make it." In those darkest moments of despair, I was forced to either surrender to the darkness or light an inner fire so bright it incinerated my fears. Time after time, face bloodied but unbowed, I chose to keep fighting, to embrace the wisdom buried in those words from the great sage Confucius. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Falls are inevitable on the path to any dream worth achieving. Obstacles litter the road like boulders, waiting to trip us up or block our way entirely. Those who fixate on somehow avoiding every pitfall are inevitably defeated by the first roadblock they encounter. But those who accept that falls will come, that some level of failure is unavoidable, those are the ones who forge the resilience required to ultimately triumph. The path I walked to get here was not a straight line. More like a winding, tangled, uphill mess of switchbacks and dead ends, stumbling through mazes and falling into deep chasms over and over again. But the setbacks themselves were not what defined me. It was whether I laid there clinging to self-pity and resignation, or drew from a bottomless well of persistence to stand back up, scarred but wiser time and again. I want to share the lowest of the low points in that journey so you can hear the depths from which I clawed my way back. It was the early 90s, and I was a young man of 24, overflowing with big dreams but painfully light on funds, wisdom and experience. I'd struck out on my own to start a business, and within 2 years it had collapsed in a smoldering heap all around me. I was over $200,000 in debt. Bankruptcy loomed like an eclipse, blotting out my future. I remember evenings where I couldn't even afford a modest dinner, having to survive those nights on nothing but tap water and a stale rice cake or two. But the true rock bottom came when I could no longer pay the utility bills. There I was, a grown man who had once dreamed of conquering the world, now having to sneak into filthy gas station bathrooms just to take a shower by crouching in the 2 small sinks. As I huddled shivering on those grimy bathroom tiles, streams of metallic tap water dripping down my face, the cosmic chasm between my life's ambitions and current reality felt so vast, so cruelly infinite, that resignation seemed like the only rational posture left. A quiet voice did whisper in that moment, "This is too hard, too far to claw back from. You'll never make it, so just give up." But then a deeper roar came thundering up from somewhere primal inside me. Like, hell you'll give up. You've been blessed with a relentless work ethic, a razor-sharp mind that can analyze and solve any problem, the grit and creative drive to forge your own way out of any chaos. Have you fallen into a pit? Good. Use this as your fucking catalyst to fight harder than you ever have in your life. Which voice do you think I listened to? You're damn right. I chose to fight. Spent months working insane hours at whatever odd jobs or side hustles to start digging my way out of that inescapable debt pit. When I finally landed a decent sales job, I used it as a launching pad to rebuild with the focus, resilience and skills minted in that bathroom floor crucible of failure. I rapidly built up a 6-figure income stream. But of course, falls kept coming at every stage of pursuing my grandest ambitions. Got arrogant and overconfident based on those first rebuilt successes. Made ill-advised bets and investments that led to another catastrophic crash and plunge into 7-figure debt. Felt that sickening vertigo of free fall all over again, watching everything I'd clawed my way towards go swirling down the drain. Then an achingly personal blow. A horrible business deal with a partner I trusted blew up in my face. He deceitfully undermined me and wrecked not just the financial prospects of that venture, but shredded my reputation and credibility in the industry. For the second time in my 30s, I found myself bankrupt in every sense of the word, destitute financially, but also emotionally and professionally. Another bout of despair crouched in those gas station showers, wondering if this was finally the setback too far, the obstacle too big to overcome. But you see, by then the vital pattern had been etched into the core of my being, branded like an uplifting mantra. Falls are inevitable. Giving up is unforgivable. Failure is a temporary condition unless you accept it as permanent. I had seen the depths, heard the darkest whispers enticing me into resignation. But I had also watched that inner voice of determination drag me back into the light again and again and again. As devastating as those crashes felt in the moment, I now recognize them for what they truly were, mere obstacles to be overcome by doubling my effort and forging unstoppable persistence. Every hardship was a reforging of my character, compounding my hunger for victory while sharpening my mind into an analytical Swiss Army knife that could solve any problem. And when I did eventually break through to achieve my ultimate vision of multidimensional success, mastering not just financial prosperity, but fulfillment in every important life sphere, it was so incomparably sweet. Because in my mind's eye, I could replay the entire epic struggle that paved those footsteps. I could look back at the trail of blood, sweat and tears, and know that every drop of that physical, mental, and emotional investment was the price required to earn those final summits. Our greatest glory, our most heroic triumphs do not belong to those who somehow glided effortlessly from success to success, without ever experiencing failure or adversity. True glory belongs to those who fell into the abyss and chose to keep rising upwards towards the light. Heeding that ancient wisdom of Confucius, with every arduous step back to their feet, understanding that their path would always be strewn with obstacles to stumble upon. It is one thing to boldly chase a dream and fall. We all stumble and struggle at times. That is the mere human condition. But it is another thing entirely to embrace those failures as stepping stones instead of stopping points. To transmute each setback into fuel for your hunger. To wield every humbling fall as a lesson in cultivating more tenacity, more hunger, more intense clarity about refining your approach. That uphill battle of tumbling and recovering, stumbling and rising. That is the epic struggle that separates the dreamers from those who are destined to live those dreams unfolded. The ultimate glory is reserved for those who meet every adversity with the unshakable belief that life's worthiest summits are reserved for the joyous climbing souls, who are determined to face and overcome each obstacle, no matter how many times they fall trying to ascend those peaks. I've been that climbing soul, having fallen more times than I care to admit on the path to actualizing my most cherished ambitions. I vividly remember moments of agony, shrouded in seeming hopelessness, drowning in scarcity and crushing failure. But what I hold closest to my heart is the memory of the voice that always roared back louder than any whispers of resignation. Get up. This is not how your story will end. You were born to conquer adversity and shatter all ceilings placed on what you can achieve. Every fall is a lesson. Every failure a stepping stone toward your greatest successes yet to come. So rise up, hungrier and wiser. Then keep ascending towards those summits that are calling your name. This voice was not just a refrain for me. It is the battle cry for all humans striving towards their greatest potential, no matter what lofty goals they pursue. Whether your Everest is building a business, mastering an art form, making a difference in the lives of others, or any worthy pursuit, the pattern repeats. Adversity strikes. You fall. The world seems set against you reaching those heights. And in that crucial crucible moment, one voice will whisper, give up, while another roars, never. Find the way forward no matter how impossible it seems. Every single one of us has faced that crossroads. We all know the siren song of defeat pulling us towards resignation. But we also know the rumble of that deeper determination, the refusal to stay stuck or settle for anything less than every last effort. At our core, we are all climbing souls. Souls destined to ascend in the face of adversity. Souls born for an uphill battle strewn with falls and failures that we must gather the courage to transcend. That is why we fall, to build the character required for achieving true greatness, to force us to choose our path again and again and again. Will we crumble under the weight of our broken dreams and surrender? Or will we stand back up with that wondrous, indomitable human spirit and keep climbing no matter what? Those are the choices we must make every time adversity strikes us down. I know the path I have chosen, time and time again. When faced with the biggest falls, I have risen up fiercer, hungrier, more obsessed with scaling those loftiest summits than ever before. The more I fell, the more it galvanized me. From every failure, I forged more resilience. From every setback, I refined my strategies and sharpened my execution. The depths I traversed, simply burning away my remaining weakness, leaving nothing but tenacity and hunger behind. And now, finally having reached so many of my loftiest goals and ascended so many magnificent life summits, I understand that these achievements are not despite my countless falls, but because of them. Each setback was an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, more relentless, and more resourceful. And I realize this is the core philosophy required to manifest any dream, no matter how grand, in the face of inevitable obstacles. So when you find yourself face down in the mud after another punishing fall from grace, first give yourself permission to feel the pain, to let the anger and despair breathe for a while. Wallow if you need to, because that rising back up after a brutal fall, that's one of the hardest damn things you'll ever do as a human being. It requires feeling the full scope of your suffering so you can alchemize it into your motivation. But then, once you've spent that appropriate time being human in all of your hurt and anguish, you must throw off those shackles of resignation whispering for you stay stuck. Instead, stoke your inner fire with the eternal flames of determination. Tell yourself, this is not how my story will end. I was born to conquer adversity and keep scaling the heights of my dreams. Because the only way to achieve true greatness in any endeavor is to embrace the endless climb, falls. Our glory is never found in avoiding those inevitable obstacles and tumbles littering life's most rewarding path. Our glory lives in rising up every time we fall. That refusal to ever stay down for the count, no matter how hard the blows or barren the straits we face. Our glory shines in those transcendent moments we dust off our bloodied knees and bellow, not for the last time or the first time, but just the next time. I am not done yet. I will keep rising higher. Those who master that mindset are the ones who see their visions through to the end, no matter how many times they taste bitter failure in pursuit of their ultimate dream. Those iron-willed, joy-climbing souls who never stayed stuck on the ground after falling, but kept finding the power to rise again and keep scaling upward with insatiable hunger. Those are the ones who manifest that elusive glory that only reveals itself on life's grandest peaks. So one final question as you chase your own loftiest dreams. When you stumble and fall, as inevitably you will, which voice will you heed? Will you listen to doubt and surrender? Or will you tune into that primal, fiery spirit inside that refuses to stay down permanently? The choice is yours, but I can speak from the deepest wisdom woven into the fabric of my falls and rebirths over a lifetime. Your greatest glory is reserved for those moments when you rise up defiant yet again to keep hungering, climbing, and conquering. Let that truth become your new philosophy for overcoming adversity. Then nothing can stop you from ascending towards any summit that summons your heart and soul to its heights. I wish I could tell you that the path gets easier after picking yourself up from those lowest of low points, that eventually the falls stop coming and you reach some plateau of perpetual smooth sailing. But that would be a lie, a damaging untruth that robs you of embracing one of life's greatest catalysts for growth. The reality is that no matter how high you climb, how many peaks you conquer, there will always be new precipices ahead where the potential for a devastating fall awaits. The successful entrepreneur who reaches new plateaus of wealth and influence, only to have it all stripped away by a bad decision or market shift. The legendary athlete who transcends their sport, rewrites the record books, but eventually has their skills eroded by age and injury. The brilliant scholar or artist who produces revered works that change their field forever, only to eventually struggle with diminishing creativity as they grow older. No one, not a single human endeavor, is immune from the pattern of falling after reaching heights. It is one of the fundamental truths of the human experience that we are always pushing towards new frontiers, new ceilings to transcend. And with each new summit we attain, the stakes get higher and the inevitable falls more brutal. That is part of why they are so critical to our perpetual growth and progress. If we never fell again after our first couple victories, we would grow complacent and stagnate. Without the emotional and psychological forging that comes through recovering from a devastating fall, we would be ill-equipped for those future, more daunting climbs. We'd remain too sophia, too coddled by transient success. Failure actually becomes the lodestar that keeps resetting our equilibrium and reminding us of the hustle required to ascend. Those humbling, even humiliating falls are what burn away our remaining hubris and weaknesses. They pummel us, but leave behind hardened focus and grit. A cleared mind unencumbered by ego or false beliefs about how high we've already climbed on life's numberless peaks. In many ways, our falls are what continue fertilizing the seeds of hunger, determination, and resourcefulness required to keep vaulting upwards through each new set of inevitable barriers. I've experienced this myself more times than I can count. Here's where I reached a new plane of success, settled into a fleeting comfort, only to soon suffer a rude reawakening about how much further I still had left to climb. After clawing my way up from that first punishing fall into bankruptcy in my 20s, eventually rebuilding my wealth and quality of life to greater heights than before, another meteoric rise was followed by an even more disastrous plummet into ruin. This time, it wasn't just a failed business leading to debt and scrape bottom. It involved much higher stakes, a betrayal by a trusted mentor and business partner that left me in multi-million-dollar legal battles, fighting to protect my reputation and everything. I'd built over decades of ceaseless hustling. It crushed me emotionally and mentally, leaving wounds that lasted years and nearly shattered my confidence permanently. In those tortuous days, as I battled depressive episodes and saw hallmarks of my hard-earned legacy crumbling, that old familiar voice tried to creep back in, whispering lies of defeat and resignation. Part of me internalized beliefs that maybe I'd climbed as high as my abilities would allow. Maybe I wasn't cut out for the boundless vision I'd carried all those years of relentlessly chasing dreams. The higher you rise, the more it stings to plummet back towards the earth. But that's when the soul-saving wisdom of those past falls recursed back into my consciousness. This is merely another test, not a stopping point. A harrowing ordeal, to be sure, but one that would ultimately reforge me into an elevated version of myself, sharper, wiser, more versatile in confronting whatever obstacles loomed ahead. Every fallen reckoning throughout our lives is a chance to slow off whatever self-limiting beliefs or coping mechanisms we'd subconsciously accumulated. An opportunity to reset with a cleaner slate and get back to climbing with even hunger intensity. So even with stakes that felt higher than ever before, I did what I'd been practicing since those first bathrooms of rock bottom. I started solving problems with maniacal discipline, addressing each issue systematically to secure my future while still waging the legal battles, focused solely on working towards the next rung of ascent rather than fixating on wounded pride or self-pity. I allowed myself to feel the sting and doubt for moments, then refocus that pain into determined hunger. Most importantly, I radiated faith that this was not the ceiling of my capabilities. That voice of self-belief whispering this fall is not the end, but another beginning. You were born for grander tests of ascendancy. Use this as fuel for rising higher than ever before. With each punishing step forward, the limitations of that dark valley cease to exist. My mind recalibrated towards the peaks ahead, whatever Everest awaited after conquering this crucible, and rise I did, like a boxer who tasted the canvas yet again. I climbed back to my feet round after round, undeterred by sweat or blood, never underestimating the remaining fight required. Eventually, the breakthrough periods of upward mobility resumed. though never devoid of further stomach-punching setbacks and course corrections. Indeed, the cycle became almost comforting in its familiarity. For I remembered the truest essence of glory does not live in perpetual unbridled triumph. True glory emerges from those transcendent moments where we keep standing up more determined than ever before, no matter how many times the universe tries to knock us flat on our asses. So when you find yourself on that lonely bathroom tile, gazing into the dark mirror of abject failure, wondering, if this is the fall too far, rest assured that it is not your expiration date, but a temporary rebirth into a wiser, hardier version of the unstoppable force within you. The depths you traverse simply burn away the final wisps of doubt and self-imposed limitations, cloaking your potential for greatness. What remains is the unbreakable kernel of belief that you were born for endless ascension. The greatest dreams, the most hallowed personal pinnacles, can never be reached through an uninterrupted trajectory of flawless advances. To manifest destiny at that level requires an epic story of rising and falling, of finding never-ending reservoirs of resilience and tenacity each time you get knocked towards the canvas. You will fall repeatedly throughout that quest, each plummet feeling more agonizingly consequential than the last. But you will also rediscover why those rebirths are far from the end. They are gateways to unleashing fresh versions of yourself calibrated for even grander climbs ahead. So walk unafraid, even towards those cliffs where failures await to shove you earthward once again. Embrace the reckoning for what it is, another refiner's fire to transmute disbelief into unstoppable self-belief. Another gauntlet to charge through on the way to the summits that stir your spirit and command your valiance for ascension. Yes, you will fall repeatedly on that journey. But if you rise back up hungrier than before, armed with fresh wisdom and more finely honed tools for scaling those heights, then there's nowhere you cannot ascend through the sheer force of your determination to keep climbing. This core philosophy, the spiritual certainty that our falls are not the periods, but the commas in the epic stories of our relentless ascension, has become the through line for my life's trajectory. It allowed me to launch from rock bottom towards the exhilarating plateaus of success I've reached, always withstanding the episodic crashes along that journey as mere obstacles to hurdle, never permanent states I would accept. And trust me, my friends, this uphill battle never ceases, no matter how high you climb, because with each new summit transcended, your perspective shifts to see new peaks on the horizon. The self-imposed limitations fall away once again. You realize you were never really scratching the surface of what's achievable, what glories of self-actualization await through more upward spirals of effort and ascendancy. So you rest, recover, rebuild, then set out for those next elevations, bolstered by the compounding experience of previously falling and rising, of gathering more wisdom and expanding your climbing skill set with each passing test of resilience. And as the climbs intensify, so does your spirit for confronting them. The bigger the temporary plunge back towards rock bottom crevasses, the more emboldening the next rebirth and return to chasing summits becomes. You see, after falling repeatedly from such varied heights throughout my life's meandering path upwards, I've realized that the falls themselves eventually lost their power to demoralize or stall my forward momentum for long. A certain level of transcendent clarity emerged about their inevitability and ultimately impermanent nature. Yes, the falls would keep coming as part of the cosmic cycle of effort, valleys always preceding those eventual new vistas and zeniths. But the focal point was no longer the transient sting of failure, the passing anguish of unfulfilled potential in those rock-bottom moments. Instead, my mind started bending like a boomerang back towards the attainable summits, always visible through the next rise ahead, provided I adhered to the core ethos of never staying stuck in any fall permanently. This journey of limitless ascent, surges and pitfalls woven inextricably together, became a joyous embrace of the human condition, rather than something to lament. Why rue the falls when they're the requisite admission fee for scaling those rewarding heights that stir your soul? Instead of catastrophizing falters along the way, I started cherishing them as pangs of life's fullest expression. Proof that the upward climbs were daring enough to warrant the risks of temporary crashes. With this profound paradigm shift, my ambition only blazed more ferociously. Instead of fearing the inevitable obstacles that awaited on future inclines, I excitedly anticipated those character-forging tests. Those inevitable reckoning falls that would reawaken my hunger and augment my climbing capacity yet again. My relentless spirit welcomed each fresh tumble as an invitation to scorch remained self-doubts and restraints to hollow out more space for the unbridled fire of determination that had risen me up from every previous collapse. Because somewhere along this serpentine journey towards scaling my most cherished life summits, I had passed through an ineffable inner initiation, a transcendent fortifying of mindset that could no longer be shaken by any failure or fall, no matter how deep the depths explored. An alchemical renaissance where the sting of any defeat was instantly recontextualized as a temporary stumble, eventually propelling me further upwards. A hardening of certainties, these that transmuted life's gravity-bound forces, into fuel for my lift towards higher plateaus of actualization. In essence, I had evolved beyond the need to fear the obstacles inherent to all worthy climbs. I embraced them, praised them even, as inevitable portals to unlocking newfound reserves of courage, creativity, and self-belief within me. Any lingering seeds of doubt became impossible to nurture under the scorching heat of my accumulated wisdom about the epic cycles of rising and falling, only to rise again wiser, more capable, hungrier than previously imagined. And in walking this path of welcoming any test the universe could dish out, of cheekily chuckling at temporary detours and pitfalls, I experienced the ultimate glory awaiting those who steadfastly cling to climbing. Because every fall, regardless of severity or recovery period required, was being revealed as part of a sacred, upward spiraling and infinite game where the only way to exit is to stop. So I played on, undeterred, no matter how dizzying or devastating the craters into which I temporarily plunge. Adamant that any delay or darkness was impermanent, so long as I remained committed to rising and recommitting to the climbs that enduringly set my soul ablaze. Perhaps it appeared outwardly like I was trapped in quicksand or hopelessly lost in life's labyrinthine corridors. But I understood that the deepest level that to embrace the magnitude of any summit is to honor the magnitude of valleys experienced when inevitably falling from previous zeniths. The irrevocable truth is that pain mirrors the potential for equal portions of joy, should we possess the courageous heart to keep ascending in the wake of any free fall from great heights. Those who avoid pain ultimately avoid experiencing the full spectrum of their capabilities on this heroic human journey. Anything worth achieving bears the risk of falling, of skinning your knees and drawing blood on the arduous switchbacking trails. So if your ultimate dream is genuinely titanic, worthy of a mythological climber, then expect Homeric tumbles along that mountain path you've chosen to conquer. Understand that the sheer vastness of the peak you aspire to summit will one day involve crevasse plunging falls that could easily break your spirit. If you have not already woven the philosophical hardness to welcome each collapse as a temporary reunion with Mother Earth, that you might become more resourceful and ferocious in your next cycle of ascendancy, simply resolving ahead of time that you will fall repeatedly, often at times when it seems unthinkable you could rise again. This decision alone bestows you with an unshakable edge over any adversity. Because you expect the fall, are prepared for the refiner's fires that burn away residual disbelief with each successive up and down cycle required to attain further elevations. Even if you sustain trauma or hit plateaus where progress grinds to a temporary halt, your determination is never extinguished. Your optimism towards the next climb remains irrepressible, steadfast in the transcendent belief forged over past upheavals that this too shall pass, and the climb shall resume, perhaps in unexpected ways. This indefatigable spirit is what forever separates those who dream of greatness from those who experience it. The dreamers envision the summits while hoping to somehow avoid the pitfalls that block their path. But those destined to reach those eternal vistas understand that the falls are not obstacles, but the consecrating blessings that ensure only the most determined souls ascend those final peaks, ecstasy. Every grand titan that you admire for the heights they attained, the icons and legends revered for achievements that bend the limits of human potential and make a dent on history itself, understand that their magnificence was not born in perpetual unbridled triumph. No, Their glory lives through the scars and bruises earned, surviving each harrowing fall from grace, only to rise again and continue upwards through pure force of spirit. Anytime you find yourself paralyzed by setbacks or convinced that a plummet has been too devastating to rebound from, look at the lives and stories of those inspirational climbing souls. Study how every personal and professional icon worth studying fell repeatedly on their path to immortal achievements. Each underwent cycles of rising and falling, of facing fallow periods and lost progress, only to summon the grit to emerge more tenacious and creatively resourceful in their next ascensionary phase. And know that you possess this same divine upward spirit coded into your soul's DNA. You are a climbing being by virtue of your very existence in this realm of duality and constant flux. The fire of ascendancy burns in you, tempered and refined for greater feats through each inevitable fall to come. All that is required is your steadfast decision to join the ranks of those spiritual mountaineers who forever rise back up, no matter how many times life's initiations knock them bluntly towards the terra below. We gather here today as seekers on this journey of human actualization, each striving towards our unique personal summits and highest idealized self-expression. But the journey will never be an unbroken line of perpetually ascending slope graphs. It will look like a volatile sine curve, jagged with unexpected surges and brutal, spirit-testing plunges that will require you to summon your deepest resolve many times over. And that is as it should be. Because it is exactly those episodic falls, those spells of despair and self-doubt in the proverbial abyss, that alchemize your character into the mythic state required for achievement beyond the ordinary. Each rise from the ashes remakes you into something more resilient, more wise, more obsessively hungry for that final summit than before. Until eventually, through every iteration of the cycle, your spirit becomes unbreakable, a permanently blazing source of certainty focused solely on how to continue ascending fall after fall if required. After decades navigating this spiraling continuum of rising and falling throughout multiple lives across different spheres, career, finance, family, health, spirituality, and beyond, I've reached a point of supreme equipoise. I accept the inevitability of falls because I've become intimately familiar with the ferocious rebirths they catalyze. I welcome the tests because I exult in shedding the final remaining traces of disbelief about manifesting the wildest dreams I set for myself. The very fact that I stand before you today in the golden era of my life's journey thus far, having crystallized so much compound prosperity and multifaceted success in all key areas, is a testament to the power of this philosophy about adversity. I've risen from ground zeros, so wretched, so devoid of light, that most would surrender and accept a dimly lit existence fated for mediocrity. But with each successive fall, no matter how crushing or interminably dark the immediate aftermath felt, I regained my footing through remembering a simple truth. I was born to do great things, to transcend adversities and scale the heights. I have an unlimited spring of perseverance fueling me, and the falls are not the darkness extinguishing my light, but fortifying experiences that burn brighter the flames of determination inside. Every collapse in pursuit of my visions was becoming an opportunity to cultivate more grit, more courage, more resourcefulness for finding better pathways upwards.